All right, guys. Hello and welcome to the first Fireside Chat of 2022. I'm your facilitator, Justin Kim, and we have three very special guests with us today to talk about life after graduation. We're going to be talking about a lot of kind of general things like what it's like to move away from your home country, and what it's like also to experience like the ups and downs of figuring out where you fit career-wise as you're pursuing the musician path. There'll be some logistic tricks and tips that we'll be talking about, like visas, and basically just generally things like that. So real quick, I just want to introduce all our guests. We have Dr. Lisa McCarroll, active recitalist performing in the USA and Europe as both solo and collaborative pianist. She studied with world-renowned piano pedagogues, currently holds an adjunct faculty position at the University of St. Thomas, the Lone Star College, North Harris, and is also a member of the piano faculty at Tallowood Academy of Fine Arts. Thank you for showing up with us, Lisa.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And we also have another Dr. Mauricio Oliveros.
Oliveros, yeah. That's good.
Thank you. He's an active recitalist, chamber musician, and an educator who's performed with many different orchestras and given masterclasses all over the American continent. Currently associate concertmaster of the Symphony of Southeast Texas, and is adjunct faculty at a bunch of different schools: Houston Baptist University, Kincaid School, and the Tallowood Academy of Fine Arts. And that's also the co-founder of Houston-based Terra Nostra Ensemble, which performs music written by composers from Latin America and the Iberian Peninsula. So thank you, Mauricio, for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
And lastly, we have another doctor.
Doctor Day.
Sorry, what was
I'm not
that?
a doctor.
Oh, you're not?
I'm not.
Oh, that was
Just a mister.
Just a mister. Very extensively performed cellist. He was the youngest member of the National Symphony Orchestra and Radio Television Orchestra of Singapore, or was it
Malaysia?
Malaysia. He's recorded numerous pop albums and TV commercial music. He's toured and performed with orchestras at a bunch of different renowned concert halls across Asia, as a cellist in nationally acclaimed Boston String Quartet and the Voyage Piano Trio. And to top it all off, he was even the former marketing executive at a large casino in Boston, which we can get into later. So thank you, Kett, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I think the place I'd like to start is basically like just talking about the journey from college to where you guys are now. Like when I look at y'all's careers, you guys have all found so many different places to fit as musicians, which is the challenge of any aspiring, or the challenge and like the anxiety of any aspiring musician. You guys have performed in renowned orchestras and often as soloists and teaching master classes and recording albums. And what I'm curious about is, from where you are now, like how wide is the gap between what your during college self thought you'd be doing and where you find yourselves now? And any of you guys can take that to start.
I would say it's pretty wide. When I came to America, I was playing in a professional symphony in Colombia. I had already finished my bachelor's degree, and I was working, and I was lucky enough to find a way to come to America and continue my studies. And initially I remember thinking I'm just gonna go do a master's and come back. to keep working. But as you can tell, I studied here so far in America, and I never thought I would be creating an ensemble like Terra Nostra. I never thought I would be, trying to or being as a faculty in an university, and I'm currently trying to find a full-time position in a university. And I actually never thought I would like teaching the violin so much. I was thinking of playing. I do perform, so I guess the educational part of it was not something I thought about that I was gonna be doing. And as I was doing my degrees here and my studies, I started trying, just even like looking at my professor's studio and the pictures of the teachers and just thinking, wow, it's so good to have your own studio and students coming to you and talking about your what you have learned and giving it to them. So I guess in my case it was why I was mainly performing in Colombia. I came to America and now I do a little bit of both. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
I think I'm the same with Mauricio. Like when I was in college, I never thought about myself as a teacher. Like I wasn't very serious in the pedagogue class, and I just try to get through it. And I foresee myself to be an orchestra player because when I was in Malaysia, I was playing with the National Symphony, and so I thought, oh, I'm now going to college. I'm getting a degree, so I would be in Boston Symphony per se. And when I was in college, it's very ambitious, that kind of thought. And then so after I graduated, I actually was in the audition track for many years. I think for 5 to 6 years. I was doing all kinds of audition, like flying to Louisiana. That was my first, and then I went to San Antonio. I went to Kansas City, and then I traveled for New York Phil, and a lot of audition later. Yeah, and then I just wasn't making a living. I was just like burning money. And then I thought, I had to, sort of think about my future, because I can't just like keep swiping my credit card without thinking about how to actually make a living. So that's when I started to, accept my fate and to teach. And at first I was very against it because that wasn't really what I thought I would become. But then I actually found love in teaching. I think after teaching is one thing, it's more about like human interaction. Like even though they're kids, but you make connection with them. You build a kind of relationship. And so fast forward to now, I have students from third grade to high school, and they just graduated, and now they're going to college, and that makes me feel kind of fulfilled. And then also later I went to a different field just to try something new, and that was a great experience. I don't want to get too far, but maybe Lisa can take over.
Yeah, so I have a similar story as well. Like I think everybody just, starts off with their instrument and then goes on to study for a performance degree. You're always like playing, just want to play. And hopefully, yes, that you can get to do that. But like Mauricio and Kett, I find the value in teaching as well. And I agree, like, forming all these relationships and then seeing them grow over the years, like having them come in as, little tiny students, and now they're like towering over me, and they're 6 feet, they're about to graduate high school, or they're, or at the university, that, it's so satisfying to like have students like graduate, and play their final recitals. It's just so great. And I think also being a teacher, it makes you a better performer as well.
Mm-hmm.
You learn, like there's things that will come naturally to you that aren't natural to the student, and you have to sit and adapt and break it down for them, and that actually helps your own playing as well. That you fully understand what you are doing, and then you're able to break it down and pass it on. And I think that's also why what's important. If you have a gift, that you have to pass it on. But yeah, I never thought that I would be living in America. I kind of like Mauricio, thought I was coming here, do my master's, and then I would, you know, go back to Ireland. I'm such a home bird, and you know, so thought I would go back and you know, and set up a studio, which I did for a year. But that was around 2008 with recession and all that. And I live in a very kind of small part of Ireland where they still see music as a hobby, and, you know, want you to do it for next to nothing, you know. So I came back and did my doctorate degree, and then accumulated students and connections, and just saw Houston's such a great place for the arts. Like, you have opportunity to play and teach and form all these musical connections, and music is such a small world. So now there's like people all over the world that, you know, that I know. So all through performance and teaching. But yeah, like I definitely didn't see that this is where I'm going to be. But I'm so blessed, you know, I'm a faculty member in a university, and I get to perform with amazing musicians and things like that. So yeah, I'm very happy where I am right now.
Okay, so it sounds like you guys are all pretty surprised. Maybe surprise is the right word, or that your past selves would be surprised to see where you're at now. And it also sounds like you guys have found things that make you happy that younger self wouldn't have been able to know that would make you happy. The career decision around money also that you mentioned, Kett, is interesting to me, because the conventional way to think about being a professional artist is very like follow your dream. And that's like what's pounded into just like what we see from our culture. But it sounds to me, Kett, that when you made the decision around money for stability, you found something that made you happy even within that, with teaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's really, I feel like that's important for people to know about, because it can be really hard to make that decision, and I'm still learning about that too, personally. And I feel like it can be, I imagine that it might be scary, or it might feel like self-betrayal, or it might feel like giving up. Does that resonate with any of you guys? Like to start thinking about money?
Well, yeah, I feel like I definitely learned how to make money through, like I said, Ireland almost wants you to do it for free. Well, I'm not bad-mouthing where I'm from, but it's just, you know, there's a lack of education there with the arts. I'm sure there's other parts of the world are the same. You would, if you want, you know, Dublin or Cork are the big places, you know, musical centers. And, you know, I was almost like the most northerly point of Ireland. So when I came to America, through, you know, seeing my teachers and, you know, my peers, like seeing how they made money through their art, you know, was really inspiring, and I learned a lot from them, and it made me feel good that I was able to make money through my art, because that's something I didn't really experience so much when I was younger in Ireland. You know, you were doing performances for free or a little bit of money, you know. So I think it is a very important aspect to realize, like being able, like, you have to survive, you know, you have to live. And so I didn't feel like I was giving up so much. I was like so amazed that I could make a living from my talent and my art. And it, like I said, it gave me confidence, but then I didn't give up the performance side as well. And I get paid for that as well. So, and like I said, teaching helps your performance, it works in tandem. So I wouldn't say that, maybe if I was like the younger Lisa looking forward, think, oh, she's teaching now and not the grand, superstar pianist, but as I was going along the journey, I was very happy. I wasn't disappointed.
I just want to clarify that what I meant about teaching is not just to make money. It's just another income source as a freelance musician. Because I was also doing lots of performance gig at that time, but teaching definitely is more. When you go through teaching in let's say in a public school or private school, it's more like a steady income because you have guaranteed kind of rate and like lessons and students and things like that. And money was especially hard for me at that time, just because I'm a cellist. So when I fly to a different city, I have to buy an extra seat for the cello.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of money. If you think about 2 auditions in a year, that would cost about like 2,000-3,000, getting hotels and, and good meals and transportation, renting a car and all that. And yeah, and I think money is definitely, a big challenge, but also I think it's important that you don't give up, even though, it seems like, that you don't have a chance in like my case. Like it was at this point not getting into the orchestra that I auditioned, but I think I learned a lot from that experience as well, and that helped my playing and my teaching and how I perceive life in general. Because in college, I'm not sure about the college right now, but when I was in college at that time, and there's a big preach about, like the only stable source of income is getting an orchestra job. At least for us string players, like it's always a preach like that. And so all of us just have one goal, it's to get into an orchestra after we graduate. So that's why I think, a college shouldn't preach a student, things like this, because if you look at the data, doesn't make any sense, because there are only a few positions open every year. And how many of us graduate from college? Not all of us make it, even though you're extraordinary, but there's not enough job for everybody out there. So it should be a more, I think, open-minded kind of education about, okay, what's the plan B, what's the plan C? You could open a studio, you could, there's so many ways to make a living as a musician. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree with Kett and Lisa, and I think also I don't think any of us has given up dreams, or I do play in an orchestra, but I also audition for full-time orchestras, and there are ones that I wanted to win and I didn't win, and I think for a musician, and I guess what younger Mauricio would see in me is like I wouldn't be able at that time to understand that you need to also think about evolving, about like Kett said, having plan A, plan B, plan C, because yes, once you graduate from school, you're no longer a student, and you need to start making a living and start living that part of your life that we all live, which is working and making a living and not really being a student. But as a musician, we don't stop being students anyway. We don't stop improving. We need to keep practicing. We know that if I don't practice this week, well, I need to practice next week, because I don't want to lose my level, or so I think it's a concept of evolving. So yes, you have a dream maybe, and in music there's so many options that you can do. You have so much. In fact, you just can see in our lives, we have more than one job. We have different jobs that are different things. Perform here, teach here, play there, master classes. So there's so much that you can do, that you could have one big dream, but at the same time, if you're not giving it up by maybe thinking an other dream, or option B, option C, option D. There are those people who will be lucky enough to have one dream, and then, you know, I want to be in the New York Philharmonic and make it, and, you know, they achieve their dream. But usually you will see that they also find other things to do. You know, you evolve a lot in this profession, I think, in the arts and in music especially.
Yeah, and I think like your dream, like Marisa said, can open many other doors. And like something like as a kid, you know, a young musician, you might think, like, I only want this path. But then that your dream could, like I said, you can meet somebody or you can come across like another skill that you've never experienced and or a job that's related to your instrument that you've never tried out before or never knew about, and then you absolutely adore it. You know, I know people who are, for example, like wonderful pianists, and they accompany like ballet companies, you know, or opera, and they absolutely adore it and they can't think of doing anything else, you know. And that's a stable job that they have, but then they cannot go off and do other things and also keep the performing going, you know. So yeah.
It sounds okay. So there's so many different places I want to go. I'm trying to figure out. I mean, one thing I'm curious about is with the perspective that you guys have, just like real quick, can you just like list out like the different options of non just getting an orchestra job option for music that you feel like just aren't talked about? Like somebody mentioned, Kett, you mentioned opening a studio or teaching. And Lisa, you talked about the performing for ballets and things like that. Like, can you guys just like list a bunch of things that you think people might not, or aspiring musicians might not have known were options?
Yeah, so well, for piano, of course you have the, like you said, like solo, but of course chamber music, so you can play for, you know, be in a piano trio, piano quintet, or just be part of a chamber music ensemble where you can, which is, you know, it's very common today to see that, where there's a whole ensemble of different instruments and maybe vocalists, and they kind of you know, mix and match, you know, for each concert that they put on. But like I said, you know, you can play for an opera, ballet, you can help with conducting classes, you can be the orchestra, you know, for, you know, playing and conducting classes. You can also be a vocal coach, where, you know, vocalists come to you and you of course accompany them, but you're helping them with their dialect and all that kind of stuff that goes with vocalists. You can be involved in church or choir, where you're playing for a choir. You could even be the director of a choir, so you're the pianist but also directing, and that doesn't have to be within a church, it can be outside a church as well. Yeah, like there's many different options, and, you know, outside of just solo artist, you know. And I think that gives you, like, having that multifaceted life, it's like so rich, like it just enriches your life, you know. If you're interested in your instrument and music, like, you know, you'll just love being able to do all these different things. You can venture into like different styles as well, of course, if you can, like jazz and pop, and, you know, I mean, there's limitless, you know, options.
Yeah, I think what you're asking, Justin, is actually hard to answer in a way, because there's so much. Just the gigging world is just a gig could be from playing a wedding to playing in a dinner to playing in church. You know, all this gig world that, at least in America, or at least in Houston where I live, is pretty big. I have friends who live off just gigs, you know, and pretty well, very good, you know. And some people that actually love this type of gigs, you know, and didn't think they were gonna do this when they were in school. They were just playing, I don't know, their Bach sonatas and, you know, their traditional repertoire, and now they have fun playing and they love playing, you know, quartet versions of pop music in gigs. You know? So I do think that a lot of people will find out this in school, that you know, you have the gigging option. It's a little bit unstable in a way, because sometimes you have it, you don't have it, but that gives you a lot of income options and job options that you can, you know, go and do, certainly while you're trying to, I don't know, make it into a professional symphony orchestra, or, you know, audition here, or apply for a teaching position somewhere else. And I think also in my case, the creation of an ensemble like Terra Nostra has also been very special, because, you know, in my ensemble in here in Houston was the first one to champion music by composers from Latin America and Iberia. So it's something unique. So maybe even as somebody who's graduating, or, you know, and is looking for the conventional jobs, let's call it that way, you know, a teaching position, symphony orchestra position, you know, creating something new, something unique, of finding your own voice is something that I think it's also not only inspiring for you, but also can find you more ways of making a living. You know? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Lisa and Mauricio pretty much cover everything they have to say. So yeah, I think it's important that you know, like, this gigs exist, and you have to know how you get this gigs as well, because eventually it's all about connections. And it all starts from college, your peers. And then when you graduated, you know, you might do a few, like, you know, low-paying gigs, but then from there you get to know all these different people, and then that will expand your network. I think there's something that I wish, you know, I have that kind of education in college, you know, like to sort of guide me how to, you know, get out to the world. But pretty much I think networking is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kett's completely right there in the networking. I myself have my experience where I wish I would have told this when I was in school, because I didn't do much networking, you know, and I have friends who were always doing networking, who were always like nice to everyone, and like, you know, getting this aura, and it's so easy for them to get called for jobs. So I guess that human part of the networking is so important, and sometimes it's overlooked when you're just focused on whatever you want to do. You need to practice, and I cannot talk to anyone. I'm going in my practice room, you know, which is not bad. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think that Kett has touched something very important, which is the networking aspects of it. Well, the more you network, the more you probably will not have jobs and options, you know.
Yeah, so don't stay in the practice room. Go out and talk to people. And
Don't do a Mauricio.
Yeah, I think that was also my personal experience with college, and my biggest regret is in that same area, where, looking back, I wished that I made more lasting relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like when you come out of college, you realize how much you took for granted, just like being forced to be around a lot of people. Because you end up in classrooms, you end up in different groups, and outside of college, it feels like you have to actively go out and meet people and connect with people, and those kinds of group settings are such an opportunity to make friends and to make those kinds of connections. And I think that advice of I don't even know if networking is the right word. I think what's important is just like learning to enjoy people, like to like sincerely enjoy people, because I feel like the joke around that age is like, oh, I don't like peopling is not fun, and like I want to stay in bed, and like that's like the collective sense of humor around it. But there's, as you grow up, and I'm sure you guys have experienced this as your careers have expanded, it's like you can't do anything big or important without other people. Like it's all in relationships. It's all in your ability to be pleasant around and for people to enjoy being around you. Like that's such an important quality. And I do think it's not talked about enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's studying that they don't teach you in school, and maybe there should be something, you know, some like, I don't know, relationship class or something for musicians, where they tell you, you know, like you're saying, like really like be someone that people enjoy being around, you know, because sometimes musicians can get, you know, a little bit, I don't know what the word is, was like, I don't want to talk or something, you know.
Well, I suppose it just depends the type of person you are too, but it's easy to get stuck in your practice room when you have all these deadlines, you know, and of course your dream and your goals that you're working towards. Especially with piano, you can be very isolated, you know, with string instruments, orchestra instruments, you have, you know, like during, I'm sure it's the same for both of you, that you had your orchestra in school.
Yeah.
So there was a social element to that. You know, with piano, it was very much solo, but then, well, the places that I studied, you know, you did accompany people, and that was like your time that you were making connections with other instruments or vocalists outside of just piano. But yeah, I suppose it's just to remember that music is a communicative art, and that you're not an island. You know, you just make friends, you know, and you know, I know for me, like the term networking is very hard for me because I'm naturally a very shy person, but being from Ireland, like we love people and just chatting, you know, and we're not even really thinking, oh, I must speak to this person because they are this, you know, and they would help my career. It's just, we enjoy, like we call it banter. The banter is just like forward and back chatting, and having fun and learning, you know, different things from different people. But so I've always liked people and, you know, made friends, even though I was shy, and have met, you know, wonderful people through that. And I suppose that is, you know, leads to networking, because I still have those relationships, and like we talk about collaborating and different projects and things that we can do and help each other out, you know. So yeah, we can, you know, easily get very stuck in, I must practice, but we also have to remember that the composers that composed this music, like they were like rounded human beings, and they talk about, you know, Beethoven and Brahms like going out in nature and all that kind of stuff, and they had their group of very, like it's very common in Europe where, you know, they would gravitate around cafes and like chat to each other, you know, writers, visual artists, musicians. So they were socializing, you know, and all that came out in their music. It was very human. So just try not to get stuck in a practice room and think that's how I'm going to get to my end goal. You know, try and make friendships, relationships, and like have different experiences. Maybe like you have friends in, like I said, visual art or accountant, you know, so not just in your own field as well.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because you need all these other perspectives. Like that's really important. let me think. Okay, so right now the sense that I'm getting is, okay, so we have the relationships, and then also one thing I noticed about you guys is that it seems like you guys never really let go of your love for music, and that shows up to me in the just like the energy or the attitude you guys have around how naturally you kind of were just like, oh, like there's this other thing I can do with music, or this teaching was really fun. Like it seems like you guys were all very in touch with like your sense of enjoyment around things versus being narrowly committed to being a star soloist, for example. And that makes me wonder, because that's the perception I have, right? Like that makes me wonder, did you guys ever have times during your path that you doubted that you wanted to be in music?
I guess I have, yeah, I have had that. I'm trying to think of actually an occasion. Actually, the fact that I'm a musician is also, I became a musician not wanting to be a musician. I went to school, like in the mornings, primary and high school, and in the afternoons, my parents had me going to the conservatory from primary and high school. So I was always busy with music, and the conservatory is like violin, orchestra, choir, history, music theory. I did this my whole, and so I guess when I was graduating from high school, I was also graduating from the conservatory in the afternoons with a high school music diploma or something. And I think I was kind of maybe burnt out or something, and I did not want to do music. And I wanted to do electronic engineering, because one of my hobbies was making robots, like transformers and stuff. So that's what I really wanted to do. Like I really did not want to do music, and the conservatory offered me a full scholarship to continue with my bachelor's studies. But that was my plan B. My plan A was to, there's something like the SAT here in America, in Colombia, it's called the ICFES. And I had a good score, but I didn't have like a bright score because, I wasn't just I was a good student, but I was not like the best student, So my score was, good, but not the top high scores that you get and then you need for when you apply to university. And in my case, my parents didn't have money, and we were not rich, we just had to go to public school, and public school, they required these really high scores. And although I had a score that they needed, the course closest way higher, So let's say the score is 320. Well, people who have 400 apply to it, so you have no chance if you have 321, which is what I had. And I didn't get into the university for electronic engineering. I just didn't get a scholarship or anything. So my parents and I were like, well, I'm just not gonna do anything. Let's take that full scholarship for music. And then I did obviously fall in love with it. But yes, certainly, I think when you don't achieve a goal, when you go out and audition in a symphony and then you don't play well, when you play a recital and you practice so hard and then you miss a passage, stuff like that, I think is what, in my case, will make me doubt and like, do I really want to keep doing this? But usually it goes away pretty quick, but I did have those moments. I remember, auditioning and for as an orchestra, especially, and just going there, and I don't know what was happening with my fingers. They're just like not responding, and after a long drive, I'm practicing like crazy, and like, why am I playing like this? Like, what's happening? Those type of things are like hard, or not, or applying for a job and not getting that job is also something that sometimes is is strong, you know, it's hard to manage. And in my case, I may have decided. Now it's too late though. Now there's, what else am I gonna do, you know? But I guess when you're younger, you have more of an option to be like, you know, I can go another way or something.
I like this like reluctant success of your career. Yeah.
Well, I really remember that audition. I practiced a lot, and I thought I was ready, and the drive was like, it was like an 8-hour drive. I don't
Oh yeah,
want to
that
say,
drains you. 8 hours drive is not good.
yeah, I don't want to say everything like what it was and everything, but because but yeah, I went there and I started playing there, and just what's happening, you know, and driving back, I just was thinking maybe, you know, maybe I have to do something else, but it went away, you know.
But I know people don't know, but I know Mauricio, and he does have like a passion for music, like an absolute passion for music. And I think what he's just talking about is little knocks in his confidence, you know, along the way, which I suppose everybody deals with and can be difficult. And but I just want to get across that Mauricio does have that passion for music. He sounds like he's.
Oh, are you saying? Oh, I think she's saying that because I said at the beginning I didn't want. No, I did fall in love with my violin and you know, with making music, and I'll do arrangements, and I mean, I consider myself talented enough for music to just, you know, that's what I need to do. But yes, I guess what I'm trying to say with all the stories is that in my case, every time there was a disappointment, every time there was, well, not every time, you know, like big disappointments sometimes will make you doubt, you know, this is what I want to do. And I feel like maybe everyone probably goes through that. Big disappointment sometimes are hard to manage, and
I think it's part of the package of being a musician. Like there's no like upwards all the time. You like go up and down, and disappointment. I had the same too every time I fail an audition, and you know, it's just a self-doubt, but it will come back after 3 days. You know, have a drink, have a good sleep, watch a movie, and then back to track.
Yeah, you keep trying, and it shows why we're still in music. We're still musicians because we have gotten over those times where you're like, you know, so why does this happen, and then you just get over.
I think it's also part of your training as a musician. You're kind of taught to be resilient, you know. I'm sure like everybody, I'm not saying anything new, but your teachers would have said, okay, if you make a mistake, just keep going, you know, just don't even show that you made a mistake, pretend that that's the way it was, you know. And so you're kind of, you know, like trained to be like resilient and tough. And so like you do have so I suppose that's in us, like we have little setbacks, but you know, we pull ourselves together and keep going, because that's part of, you know, performance. Like there's no such thing as a perfect performance, you know. All those recordings are edited and, you know, take 1,000 is, you know, joined to, you know, take 1, you know, and you have this like clean recording, but that's not, you know, true with live performance. So yeah. I think we're taught that, you know, to pick yourself up, keep going, and so it's kind of just in us.
Yeah.
Even if we have those setbacks.
Yeah. I have a question around this resilience, which is I think popularly or like mainstream motivational culture, in that kind of world, the question is usually something like, what is it that kept you going, or what is it that made you stay faithful to music? But I kind of have an inverted opposite question, which came from Kett's story about just like, you know, just have a few drinks and in 3 days it came back. Like, I'm curious, did you guys have some kind of anchor that you depended on to stay within music, or was it kind of as casual and not as dramatic or romantic as just like watching some Netflix for a few days and then feeling better? Or, like, yeah, I'm curious, like what y'all's personal realities were around that.
I suppose for me, I've never doubted that I wanted to continue music. I knew it was something that I was good at, and I knew it was something that I could do. I knew I could perform well. So when even I had those setbacks, like, you know, a little tiny memory slip or whatever, you know, that I know I can do better. You know, that sort of kept me going, not dwelling in, oh my gosh, I had that one memory slip, and you know, so I suppose also too what kept me anchored to keep going is like I'm so interested in music and piano, like the instrument, and the mechanics behind it, like the biomechanics, like making sure that I'm doing, you know, I feel like I'm still learning to this day. And I had the opportunity to, you know, be around some really great artists, you know, like Abby Simon was a professor in University of Houston, and he's like this piano god, you know, and I could, you know, master classes or just talking to him and just hear him, how he, you know, he is like superstar pianist, like golden age era of piano. And he would talk about how he was always learning, you know, and I suppose that's what like keeps me going. It's like I want to know more. I want to see how far I can go with my talent and just do as much I can. But yeah, I just had that feeling that, you know, I can, you know, I can do this, you know. But that's just my experience.
Yeah, in my case, I think it's what has helped me, you know, get over major disappointments. Now, it's not like every disappointment is gonna make, oh, okay, I'm gonna give this up. No, I'm talking about like major disappointments. I think it's just I don't think in my case those disappointments meant that my passion for music was gone. So, you know, kind of like with Kett. I mean, one day of just, you know, thinking about it, you know, you're still passionate about music. You still something I do, for example, when I don't feel like practicing my instrument, my violin, I just watch videos of people playing violin, and then you see these amazing performances, and all of a sudden you just want to practice, or you go see a live performance, you know. So, and I think that happens because you have that passion, and the passion hasn't left, you know. And I believe that all of us who are in the music, or who are studying music, or who are in college for it, have that passion, you know, and that's probably what's gonna always be there. So I guess it's a little bit romantic in a way, but it's also just because of that passion is there. I don't feel like I needed to do a lot to get back into, you know, to forget about that disappointment and keep going and stop doubting myself, you know. And in a way, sometimes I like to see, you know, well, yeah, that was a disappointment, but how much have you done? You know, like, think about what you've done and what you have, and what you are capable of, will keep you also, I think, you know, in case that you get another big disappointment like that affects you that way, you know, you just keep going.
But
So,
Kett is right. Like it's not like a constant trajectory that way. You're gonna have ups and downs, and that's just life as well. You know?
Yeah, and I agree with Mauricio and Lisa too. So sometimes it's hard to explain why we keep going. Just like the past 3 years when I'm working for this company, there's always a calling for me to play something. You know, like to do a concert. just like continue playing. It's just part of us right now. Like, I mean, I think at this point, I think at least for three of us, no matter what happened to us right now, we'll continue playing and have passion for music until, until we die.
I would love to hear more about this side quest you did, Kett, with
so I don't want to mention the company name, but yeah, it's a pretty big company. So I got in, with a bit of networking because my spouse is working in the company as a recruiter at that time. So he introduced me the job, and I thought it was interesting because it's a 5-star company and hospitality company, and I feel like I can make a lot of connection, non-musician connection, because I thought about, maybe I'll become a businessman one day. I want to like do some kind of business, so I need to expand my networking. So that's why I got into this company. So at first it was pretty exciting because I never been in this industry, and I got to know a lot about how the corporate works. And so it's basically everything under one roof. We have it's a casino, so we have hotel, we have restaurants, like many restaurants, we have a nightclub, we have, of course, the gaming side, and we have transportation, and we have the bank. We call it the cage in casino. So I have to learn so much about like how each department works, like how the hotel operates, the compliance, Title 31, like all that. So while doing that, like at one point I did just like really concentrate on working in the industry. I actually not really doing music for a few months, and then after that, like it strikes me, oh, like I really, something is calling me to go back to cello. But I just want to make it clear, I never really give up cello. When I got into this company, I was still doing lots of gigs until when I get promoted and things get more hectic and management change. Yeah, the whole thing is just very overwhelming at one point. Like I have to decide whether I have to continue doing this, or it's just like one thing or another. Because I'm the type of person that like I cannot just stay in, if I want to do something well, I have to do it very well. I cannot just like hang in the middle. So that's why I decided to move on to something else. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but do you have any more question about like this, what I do? And
oh yeah, I think I don't know if I even asked the question. I think I was just like, just tell us more. Like, so.
I see. Yeah, so basically I take care of the VIPs in the casino. It's sort of a marketing thing, but I'm not really marketing on like gambling per se. Like it's just I'm helping people who want to come to this casino, to help them with accommodations, reservations, and like sort of tell them like big promotions and stuff, and basically taking care of them so they have a seamless experience from the day they step in until they checked out. So that was my job, to make them. It's basically like a host job, but it's a host of a casino, so you have a lot of responsibility because you have to know a lot about everything.
I'm curious about how, so now that you've kind of tied that off and you're putting your full energy back into music, I'm curious about how that experience affected your understanding of your relationship to music.
I think I sort of take it for granted before, because in Boston, in Massachusetts, the gig scene is so huge. Like you have gigs all the time, and you don't really appreciate it. You're just doing it, and there's so many like rich neighborhood and the music education is always available to you. And like I was just sort of doing that for like, you know, more than a decade. And I didn't know like that was actually, you know, a paradise, because you're your own boss. You don't have to report to anyone. Like, if you know, you can always move on to the next project, and you don't have to stuck with a team. So I think the past 3 years really reminded me of that. Is, you know, is a heaven to be your own boss. To, you know, I had a good team. I'm not saying anything about them, but it's just being in a corporate world is very difficult. I think it's another kind of culture, and it's something that, you know, me as a musician, like I think I'm used to a steady flow of, you know, things or schedule and how things is done. So it's more flexible and things are under my control. But in a corporate world, you sort of like they chain you to that place and until you leave. So I think coming back to music, like I have more peace. I think that's really important. Like I never had that the past 3 years. Like I always, it's an operation job that I was doing. So, and casino is 24/7. So I always have to work the moment I'm awake. So like coming back to music, I feel like even though I'm busy, like I might be driving to the next gig, but I have room to think and to relax and to recharge.
And like, did you feel the corporate world was less creative because you were like kind of chained to one thing and one, you know, like you said, one project? And
I think if you're in a big corporation, it's like moving mountain. It's very hard to have your creativity heard for the upper management. If you're a startup, I think it's easier because things are more like, you know, you're not IPO, you're not a public company, so things are more flexible. But when you become a public company, it's all about, you know, the brand, and you know, it's harder to be creative in that kind of environment. So that's what I miss the most.
And so have you incorporated the marketing skills that you learned in that job and into your music?
Absolutely. So I think at least the job that I was doing in the casino is more like human connection. I think I was pretty good at it before, but at this job, it really teach me a lot about how to make it better or handle it better, because I think most musicians, I'm not saying on behalf of everyone, but I think we all have some kind of personality. We have like a breaking point, or like, you know, don't cross me that line, I'll fight you over. So I still have that when I was, so that reminds me, I mean, what I learned the most from this job is, you know, like when to keep quiet and when to like let things go. I think to let things go is the challenge for me, and I learned a lot from this job.
Well, guys, we're at about time. I know you guys all have a lot to return to, so I just want to wrap this up. We didn't get to go. We didn't even go past the first area of conversation.
Part two.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna have you a part two.
Yeah, I purposely kind of organized it in terms of like how important I thought it was. So just the fact that we like expanded all of this first part was really, really cool. I got so many different takeaways. But mainly like just I think the primary takeaways I got were like, don't like stay aware of your enjoyment. I think that was the kind of the key theme of what I learned from you guys, because there's so much appreciation of music that was so strong and consistent in your guys' story. And then there's, for me, I got a very long, very long and consistent sense of trust and faith also. Like there was so much openness to like seeing what else could happen and seeing what else you could enjoy. And even in the 3-year marketing thing, like it's really beautiful how like even doing that and then coming out of it enhanced your appreciation of music, Kett. So I guess there's almost like no answer to like what the proper decision is. Like really just staying aware of what's pleasurable, what's enjoyable, and what you're grateful for has seems to have been like the principles that you guys were expressing to get
Yeah.
So thank you for
Yeah. And like staying open to other paths and things like that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
huge. Well, thank you guys. This
Thank you.
You. We'll have to
and,
do a part B for the visa stuff.
yeah, I guess.
Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you
Nice to
all.
meet you, and bye.